What's up, guys? Welcome to another edition of the Defying All Odds Podcast with your host, Rafa, and my co-host,
Jesse, you already know.
and we got a longtime friend of ours here, okay? Shamar Lebreton.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Listen, man, I think this is very cool for the both of us because we've had a lot of guests, right?
Yeah.
But I think this is like the first time we've had a guest where a particular point of our lives, you were able to share with us, which was our time in Gap. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of viewers know Jesse and I met through our time working in Gap, the retail store. Shamar, he was one of our coworkers as well.
Yes.
Over there. So
That store.
yeah, bro. So I mean, how long in general were you there for?
I worked for Gap for I want to say 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
3 years.
That was about the same time I was there.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we all kind of worked about the same time, but we all started in different points
Yeah.
and finished in different points. But in general, that was how it goes.
Yeah.
So, but before we even get into that, I want to just tell the viewers, tell the fans about yourself a little bit. Just like you come up and you told me that you moved many places. You started in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So kind of start with that.
Oh yeah. So I guess my start would be living in Brooklyn with my mom, a single mom, 3 kids. So me and my 2 siblings. We grew up a little bit rough. Just of course, being a single mom, you have to work and provide for 3 kids. So it was a little rough. My childhood started, I would say the first 9 years or 8-9 years in Brooklyn, and then moving to Queens, and then eventually going to middle school, high school, and then college in Manhattan. So yeah, life was a little bit
Bouncy, I guess you could say.
bouncy, yeah, because it was never really stable. It was all over the place, kind of, but somehow we made it work. Yeah.
And what parts of Brooklyn and Queens you were living in?
Brooklyn, I was in Crown Heights for 8 years, and then in Queens, I was in different places in Queens, actually. Rosedale, and then it was Rosedale, then it was Valley Stream, and then I moved to Elmont, which is Long Island,
Yep.
and then eventually moving to the next place. But yeah, I was pretty much in different areas in New York. I would say 4 or 5 years, except for Brooklyn. Brooklyn was the first 8, and then it was just jumping around pretty much every 4 or 5 years.
I see.
Wow.
Okay. So
A lot of moving around.
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, like you said, it wasn't very stable for you. You never could truly settle down for yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, you currently now live in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Right. But also before that, you lived all the way in Texas as well.
Yeah.
Right. So how about that? What was that like? And going into Texas and living that.
Yeah, so that was interesting because I would say Long Island was kind of the first place where I stayed for a long time, and then I got the opportunity to move to Texas with my fiance. We brought up the idea of living together, which was the first time I've ever done that with someone.
Okay.
And so at first we were thinking of maybe moving at a later point, but when the opportunity of Texas came, it was kind of, okay, let's try it. I never really thought of Texas before. I just always knew when I got older, I wanted to have that stability. And so living somewhere that 1 is affordable and 2, I could see myself growing, and Texas kind of became the forefront of that. And so we tried it out, ended up falling in love with it. But then because of, a lot of personal reasons like family and things like that, we decided to move back to the East Coast. But we did spend a good amount of time in Texas, and it was actually really, really fun.
Do you think about would you ever go back, or not maybe even Texas, but would you do you ever had thoughts of going back to the West Coast, potentially moving back out there?
Maybe not the West Coast, but I do see myself at a later point maybe moving out towards maybe the South or somewhere in the East, but maybe not New York. I feel New York now, when I was younger, was a lot more, I wouldn't say easier. I think it was still very robust, and people was moving around so much, but now it's getting way too expensive. So for me, I think, especially wanting to build a family and just seeing life after, being young, New York kind of seems harder to do now than it was before. Whereas other places maybe Atlanta or I don't know, even just like Maryland, which is like not too far from here.
Yeah, 'cause
Seems
that's more north, isn't it?
Yeah. That's like your DMV area.
yeah. So like pretty much like Virginia, Maryland, DC. Even though DC is expensive too, but just staying in the East Coast because a lot of my family's in the East Coast, but then also being able to live somewhere that's comfortable and affordable.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's good. And I mean, now you're in Jersey, living that life, and I mean, you would say in general, like you feel a little bit more comfortable here than anything else.
Yeah, I would say Jersey it's like a happy medium because it's not far from New York. It's literally across the bridge.
Yeah.
And then two, even though Jersey's getting a little bit more expensive, it's still less expensive than New York. So I kind of have like a equal balance of not being directly in New York and being expensive, but then also to being accessible if something comes up with family or if I'm raising kids. It's just a bridge away to my family, so it's very yeah.
I feel like the same way. Like now, my family moved out of the city. Like I used to live for my whole life. I was on the east side my whole life in Manhattan, and then now I moved up to upstate New York, so near like Orange County area, like by like Monroe and area. So being only like an hour drive away from the city, it's not the end of the world. Like the city's pretty accessible if I need to do what I need to do and then go back home. So it's not, I would think like, I feel as though I kind of sympathize a lot with what you're saying. Like, I know rent here has been getting kind of crazy in the city. Like I kind of think like the reason like my family moved was more so like we were so used to being in like rent stabilized housing like our whole lives that once kind of like my dad retired and you lose access to that, then the trying to go find a new place is like almost just not viable. To be honest.
It's hard.
So, yeah, exactly. So moving to upstate New York, it's pretty, I guess, more convenient. Like similar to Jersey, it's like convenient. You're just right over the bridge. To get in. But I will say the traffic is something that is just
it's
something that we don't like.
And he's told it's just extra depressing.
Oh, that's a whole another issue in of itself. But like just the traffic in general, I feel like is just the worst part of it, honestly. Because that 45-minute commute could turn into hour and a half. And then to get out of the city would just be an hour alone just to get out. Just because of the rush hour, so it gets crazy.
That too.
Nah, for a fact. And I mean, tell us, how did you get into Gap? Like, what got you in there?
It's funny. When I was in college, I had a period where I was like not working, and so, like typically when I was going to college, like the norm was family kind of pays tuition or helps with tuition, or if you have like scholarships. So when I went to college, I didn't have a scholarship, and I took a period where I would stop working to focus on school, but then realized, when it's time to eat or, just doing stuff outside of school, it's like I just had no money. And so I had a friend of mine who was going to college with me who worked at Gap.
Okay.
And I think it was a store they was working, it was 34th Street's Gap. They was like really cool with the managers, and so they asked if I can come on. I interviewed, and then I got the job. But it's ironic because the 34th Street Gap, I only worked at a few months before it actually closed.
Oh,
yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah.
They sent all you guys up to us 85th Street.
Yeah.
That's true.
So that's how I ended up at 86th Street's Gap.
Yeah, and I remember.
Yeah. So that Gap closed, I think, right after Christmas, and then
that was crazy.
I got pushed to 59th Street's Gap.
Which also happened to close.
That one closed like 2 months after. I think I was at that Gap for like maybe a month or two.
I remember I did like a shift or two there.
Yeah.
I worked like I think 2 or 3 shifts there.
Yeah.
And then they sent me back up to 85th again because they had just closed down.
Yeah, that Gap was like really, really slow. There was like no customers in there at all.
Because they were all going to Banana and then Bloomingdale's.
Yeah. So that Gap, I think I was really close with Emily, who was the I think she was like the GM of 34th, and then she went to 59th. But then COVID happened, and so I kind of got pushed back, or I was like furloughed or laid off for like a little bit.
That happened to like all of us. Yeah, we were like furloughed.
Yeah, and then I came back, but then it was like kind of really slow at 59th, and then they just eventually shut down 59th. And then they asked me which one I wanted to go to, and that's when I chose 86th Street.
Oh, you had a different option?
Yeah.
What was the other option, if you remember?
I think it was 86th. I think there was one on like 10 something. I forgot what.
You talking about
like 103rd? No, not 103rd, like 116, 125th.
I think so.
125th is the Gap Factory.
maybe it was 116th.
I guess.
I don't know.
And then I think there was one in Union Square.
Yeah.
That was like my third option. I really didn't want to go down there. I think I was like 14th Street. So yeah, I chose 86th Street. One, because the person who's now my fiance, she actually lives or used to live a couple blocks away from there.
Oh, okay.
And then two, I thought 86th Street was like kind of convenient for college and for like traveling wise. So yeah, I ended up choosing there, and then I spent I think like the last 5 months there before I eventually like left Gap, overall.
I mean, we can go back to those days. I remember I was in high school when I first joined. I was like, I think the only minor in the store at the time. I'm like 16 years old when I first hopped on in 2019.
And you came into the store.
And Rafael was like my best friend. Matter of fact, we used to hang after work as well.
No, not even close. Not even close. Not even close.
I still remember, like, it was definitely an interesting experience. Like my first retail experience. Like at the time I was working Saturdays at McDonald's in like upstate New York. That was my first job, and I was there for like 2 years. Left in like 2020, like November. So then that's when I just stayed at Gap for full time. So like for a year and a half. While like during COVID as well, because you know how like Gap closed, McDonald's stayed open up there. So I was like working like 4 or 5 days a week up there, like during high school, just to kind of like support myself, save some cash on the side, prepare for college. And I never forget, like, it'd be crazy. Saturdays would be like a full shift, and then would come Sunday, and then I'd work like 6-7 hours at Gap. And then later I decreased the hours because then school picked up as well. But I just remember like that whole weekend would be go to upstate New York, work for a full shift, come back to the city, work another shift at Gap, and then school would be on Monday again in high school. So it was like a kind of crazy schedule that I had going on for most of high school.
No, man. I mean, Gap in general was so. I mean, I have a lot of interesting memories of Gap.
Oh, he sure does.
Better.
Best believe it.
For good and bad reasons, to keep it a buck.
Amazing reasons.
If you know, you know. But
yeah.
But the point is, though, Gap. I mean, Gap was cool though. Like, it definitely taught me a lot. Just like how to work with other people. Because at the time, that was basically my first job as well. Before that, I had worked like basically. It was one of those like. It was like a job that you would get like stipends. For?
Yeah. Like internships, yeah.
It was more. It was a paid volunteer, I guess you could call it.
So like an apprenticeship then.
I don't know, but yeah, it was something like that. Yeah. And I used to do that in the summer, but yeah, Gap was basically my first retail job, and that's where I learned a lot to like work with others and really learn how to really sell stuff in general. Yeah. So yeah, but Gap at that time, I mean, I would say like the first year at Gap for me. Pre-Jesse, that was the best. Like, pre-Jesse, that was the best time. Like, the group of people that worked at that store, like, and anybody that knows, that was the best time. Like, the first holiday that I went through in Gap, that was the best. Yeah. And then rolled through the next year, right? Obviously, more people came through, and then Jesse or whatever.
And then, I came through, and I made it even better. So, matter of fact, like, we had, like, a best holiday season even after that.
Definitely not.
Most definitely.
But
if you know, you know.
But I mean, how would you say was your experience just like working with us in general? Like,
you guys were really funny because 34th Street was like very chaotic. That was like
that's what everybody always said. 34th was just like a Wild West.
That wasn't inside Macy's though. It was like across the street.
No, it was like across the street. Yeah, from the H&M. Yeah. So yeah, 34th Street was chaotic. Like I've met a lot of people there that I'm still cool with today. But it was just super busy because it was a lot of tourist people. So you meet people from like all over the world. Whereas 86th Street was like more calm. Okay. And so like I got the experience of hanging out with them more than I did with the customers. Whereas 34th Street was like, you barely have time to speak to people because it's just super busy. And then too, I think 34th Street, they used to do in Gap, well, I'm pretty sure they still do it, but like they enforce like you have to get like the credit cards if you're like you gotta sign people up for the cards. So like 34th Street was like
you gotta be on it.
Yeah, so
your goal, you have to get one Gap card a day.
I'll never forget Rafael. I gotta admit, he was the king of Gap cards. I have to give him his flowers. I'll give him
Nah, respectfully, I was like, I'm not even gonna like humble myself. That was a fact. Like
there were many times because I'd only work like maybe like on the weekends, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then whether it was just 2 or 3 days out of the week, every time I was there, they'd be like, okay, let's calculate our totals for today. Because I'd be like the closing shift, and they'd be like, all right, Rafael came at number 1 with most Gap cards, followed by like Cindy or whoever else was working.
Listen, bro, I used to man. I used to get anybody to apply for that credit card. I was on it, bro. Yeah. Men, women, I don't care what you were. I was the king. I was the king of Bright. If you remember that, the Gap Goods program, where it's just like the phone number, email. Yeah, they get the email. And stuff.
Yeah. So
I hated that because I hated it only because I was so locked into Gap cards. Mm-hmm. And they would always push Gap cards, and then all of a sudden they was like, "Oh no, you need to get."
They really like you need to get one Gap card and then 5 Brights in a day.
Right. Yeah. And I was annoyed because I'm like, bro, I'm here to get credit cards. I'm not trying to get your damn email. And then I had to try to transition myself to sell both. To sell both of them. Yeah. But just so at the time when I was there, I was top 3. The other 2 people were people that were there for longer. You remember Roxy? Right? Roxana, she used to get because she used to get 10 on the regular, bro.
10 was like a regular average day.
For her,
she would get 20 at one time, I remember.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
She would bug out, bro, with that stuff, but
and she would go through the application quickly, because sometimes if they had to call or whatever. I remember one time I saw she was able to get the person to call while she was filling out a different app, and I'm like, 2 at the same time? What?
Nah, she was a pro. It was crazy. Were you good at it? I mean, you were on the cash register with me a couple times.
Yeah, so. 34th Street, I was really good at it because it's a lot of people that half the time they don't know what the card is. So it's like, oh, do you want to sign up? And they're like, oh, yeah, sure.
They want the extra 10, 15% off.
Yeah, so even if they got denied, it still counts as a
point for us.
As a point. So a lot of time I was just actually when they say, okay, so I was like, okay. And then ironically, I just became top 5 throughout the whole store. But in 86th Street, it was a lot harder for some reason because every time I would ask people, oh no, I'm okay. And I'm like, you sure?
No. Honestly, that was the thing where I remember if I was having a bad day where I could barely get one, I'd be like, okay, but at least get the Bright so you can get, because at the time we were often then it said to get the 10% with the Bright, 20% with the Gap card. And I remember I'm like, okay, get the Bright. So I was getting 20, 25 Brights easily in a day because people were just signing up like crazy. And then I had days when the promos would come around, right after spring sale, and then you got the summer sale and fall sale, right before Black Friday. That's when I would pick up my Gap card streak would go crazy because they would do the incentive. They would increase it to 25, and then 30, and then I was like, oh yeah, now I'm cooking. Now I'm getting Gap cards. And then after Black Friday, everything just becomes stale for a little bit. Yeah. I'm sorry. After January, just becomes stale. Yeah, after the holidays. So. No, it was definitely. Bro, we would go hours sometimes. We would have barely 5 customers in the store at most. It'd be quiet, especially on rainy days. Yeah,
and I think the thing too, particularly that location that we worked in, it's a very local, the people that go to that store almost every other day. Yeah. You get a lot of reoccurring people. Yeah. And not as many tourists as something like 34th. Exactly. Everybody and their mom would go through there. Yeah. So, but it was a cool experience, and I always remember when you would come into the store, but you would always have the flashiest fits, bro. I just always remember you had the flashiest fits, bro, with the shoes and the sneakers. You always had the top tier. So I'm like, yo, bro, how you doing this? I can barely afford one.
That was a weird period because I think right before that time, that's when COVID happened. Before I got to 86, so they had this program. It wasn't a program, but it was a thing where they was giving, I think $600 a week if you got furloughed.
It was
before.
The unemployment program was the furlough.
Yeah.
It's 600 plus the unemployment.
Yeah. So around that time, I was just finishing college, so for me, I really didn't have any expenses, and since that was my only job, once COVID happened, I just didn't have anything to do, so I always wanted to be a sneakerhead, but I turned into one right before COVID.
Right before its peak, right before it started going crazy.
So around that time, that's when I think GOAT and StockX was already there.
Yeah, in 2019, 2018.
Yeah. So around that time, I was like, okay, I have all this free money. Now looking back on it, I probably should have saved a lot of it. Yeah. But during that time, I was like, okay, let me just buy all the sneakers that I've always wanted, and so it turned from one sneaker to 10 to 20.
Easily. I still remember my days when I first got Sneakerhead. It's like you're on that drop sneakers at 10 a.m. on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Like, I need to get, and then no, you know what would be crazy when they would do the draws and it'd be like the collabs, like a Travis Scott, or like that would come out and you'd be like mom enter, dad enter, you get like your aunt enter, get like all these accounts just to get that one pair.
Yeah.
Bro, those are the days.
All I remember is better luck next time.
You're not selected.
Yeah. What was it they used to say? Like
the got 'em screen.
No, that's when you got them. I'm saying when you didn't get them.
Oh, it's like better luck next time.
Yeah, that's what it was, right?
Yeah.
That's all I ever got. Better luck next time. I was never lucky enough to get them.
And then if you missed out, you have to pay like 3x, 4x times the retail price.
Yeah, no.
The resale game at the time,
that's when it was peak.
It was like thousands of dollars.
Like now it's kind of crazy to think back that like if you look back before that period, how like retros would just sit.
Yeah.
And then during that period, nothing would sit.
Literally.
Maybe like a mid or a low, but not like any new retro.
Yeah.
And then now you see like a lot of these old retros like Black Hat 3s or like they'll just like sit on like you have a few new releases that are like they're gonna be
crazy. There's always
like the Metallic 5s for instance, those were like a little bit crazy. But like for the most part now, like they sit now. Like it's crazy how we went back to the old days again.
Yeah. I mean in general, you have your peaks and valleys. Like are you still pretty into like the sneakers and stuff like that? Like do you still try to like keep up with it?
Yeah.
Me personally, no.
It's kind of slow. Sometimes I'll do like
what's coming out now?
Yeah, sometimes it's usually just like, okay, if I like it, I'll go for it. But if not, not really. Like I tried the Nigel Sylvester's.
Oh yeah, the brick by brick.
Yeah, those I was really trying to get, but like
they're tough,
every raffle, sneakers app, all said no. And for me, like I'm getting to a point where I'm older now, so it's like I can't pay like $1,000 for shoes anymore. So if it's getting to that point, then it's like no. But if I can get it for retail, sure, why not?
Right.
But I've picking up a few things, or people will buy me things. Like my fiance buys me sneakers once in a while. I think the last pair of sneakers I bought was the Metallic 5s.
Yeah, I got those too recently.
I got lucky and got picked on Sneakers app for some reason. But yeah, I tried the Nigel Sylvester's. I think I tried for the SBs, the navies. Didn't get those.
Oh, the fours?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, those look.
They look good.
They look so nice.
And there's a lot of sneakers coming out this year that I might go for, but it depends on finances. But
like white cement 4s.
Yeah, definitely white cement 4s. I'm going for.
You can never get over that Nike or logo on the back of the 34 tab.
Yeah.
I would say those and the Black Cat 4s at the end of the year.
The Black Cat 4, that's the funny thing. That's the one shoe that I'll never forget about. Like I never wanted it.
Yeah.
But I remember it's like those. That was when I started. That's when I started getting on that like sneakerhead journey, right?
Yeah.
I had recently. They had dropped the Cool Grey 4s.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I got those on the sneakers app.
I got those
easily,
on
right?
Mm.
And then fast forward, they were dropping the Black Cats. And I remember telling myself like I don't need it because I got the Cool Grey 4s, and me personally, I just didn't. I wasn't like crazy on it.
Yeah.
And I remember my girlfriend at the time, she wanted those shoes, right? And I remember telling her like, nah, you got to get them on the app. If not, they're gonna sell out.
Yeah.
And I remember she went to a random Foot Locker on 125th and bought them right on the shelf, right? And at the time, I'm like, wow, that's crazy. But looking back at it, I'm like, yo, bro, I wish I did the same, bro. Because like those,
they shot up like over $1,000.
Bro, yeah, but it took a couple of years for it to do that.
Yeah.
Because even after it dropped, you could get them pretty easily for a really low price. And then out of nowhere, after COVID and all that thing just shot to the moon, and everybody made mother want triple black shoes.
I'll never forget when I used to work at Nike. Like, I worked at like the location upstate New York by Woodbury, and over there, by far, I just remember how like they would have like the craziest releases that would like drop, and I'd be like, damn, like every time they would release something that I wanted for like my personal, like for the toe, I was just never there. And it was just like they had a time where they released like Black Hat 4s, and this is like 2022, like 2 years after they dropped, and like they're going for crazy amounts. Everyone's going crazy, and like I was never too crazy over the pair, and I just remember I'm like, wow, like my store really had that like pair. I was like, that's just so crazy to think like the one time you're not there.
Yeah, man.
But I do remember there was a time where I was there for like an actual drop. They were dropping Red Thunder 4s, and this is like at the time like maybe a few months after they had already dropped. It's just like the black 4 with like some red.
Yeah, no.
And I just remember like they go crazy up there. Like they'll there'll be people really camping out at like 6 in the morning waiting for us to open at like 9, 10 a.m.
Thinking it's still the 90s.
And I'm like, like, wow. And I mean, well, there was also like the same crowd that would come as well. But at the same time, it's just like so crazy to think that you like waiting like the days of camping out for a shoe, they were like coming back. Yeah. Especially, I was like, that's so crazy.
No, for real, bro. No, it's a crazy world. Like I can't do it anymore. Honestly, like I stick to my New Balances and my Aces and call it a day. Like if it's comfortable, New Balance for me is the best right now.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
they're very versatile. They're very comfortable. But we're not here to sponsor nobody, honestly. So, but
unless y'all want to sponsor us.
Oh no, of course, yeah. That'd be great. But Shamar, I mean, outside of Gap, I know you've done a lot of other jobs since leaving. Like I know you spoke about how you were a teacher, right? Are you still teaching right now?
No, not currently.
Right? Okay, and then but I know your main thing is that you want to be a paralegal.
Yeah.
So like tell us more about that, how you got into from the teaching and then switching on to that.
So the paralegal, it was weird because I was actually going to college to become a lawyer, but I think during my college years, I knew like being a lawyer was just something I was like interested in, but it wasn't a passion of mine. And so after I graduated college, pretty much I was like kind of stuck in the middle because I didn't know if I wanted to like actually pursue law school or do I just, do what I actually wanted to do. Yeah. Which ironically, right when I graduated college, COVID happened. And so it kind of gave me a little bit of time to figure out what I actually wanted to do. And so in the middle of COVID, that's when I was like towards the end of my gap years. And then I transitioned over to being a teacher, which for a little bit, I was actually enjoying like being a teacher. Working with like anywhere from kindergarten all the way up to like 8th grade.
And you taught here in New York?
Yeah.
So was that K through 12? Was it like middle school and high school and elementary?
Yeah, so it was like elementary and middle school. I had the opportunity to do high school, but I just didn't want to. Yeah. But yeah, doing teaching, it was one of those things like as a kid, I always said I never want to be a teacher, but actually doing the job, I was like, oh, I actually like teaching kids.
Really? What changed that mindset of yours? Because I say the same thing. Yeah. I feel like I would never want to be a teacher. Yeah,
I don't know. It was weird. Like I always saw teachers like, well, being a kid, like watching teachers, I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. Like,
right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's terrible. But when I was actually like reversed, actually being the teacher, just seeing kids like actually learning and then like kids wanting to come to school just to see you or like they're your favorite class, it kind of gives you like some sense of, I don't know what the word is, but it's like, yeah, it's like, appreciation? Right. Cause it's like seeing kids like actually looking up to you. It's like, wow, that's actually pretty cool. And just knowing like their future is like, you have some part in it to where seeing them being successful. Like some kids now, like email me or just like write to me and say, hey, like I'm in high school now, I'm doing great. So it's like just having that cool experience. Like I never thought something like that would be for me, but like seeing that was like actually pretty cool. But I knew like the New York education system was like really bad. And so that was like
hard, specifically because I mean, from what I understand, you have to get a master's to become a teacher.
Yeah, so
but you don't have a master's, do you?
No, right? So it's either you go for a master's or you do like this program, I think for like a year or two, and then you have to take the test and everything. It's similar to like most occupations, like a lawyer and stuff, where you have to go to school and then take a test.
Yeah, it's like for education, like master's education, something like that. Okay.
So unless you're like in college, like going for your
master's.
Yeah, if you're going for like education and then you take get your bachelor's and then your master's, or you do a specific program in college. I think there's other ways to do it, but it's a lot harder. But yeah, mostly right now it's like a master's or you take like a big program.
Okay, cool. Okay, and then from the teaching you went straight to the paralegal?
Yeah, so after the teaching, I think that was around the time I was moving to Texas, and so I didn't want to do teaching in Texas because I liked New York teaching, but I knew it would have been a whole different experience. And so I started working remote for a media company because I knew outside of teaching and being a lawyer, content creation was like something I was like really huge on.
Right, yeah.
So once I left teaching, I kind of focused on content creation, and then the job I work now is like directly focused in media, like working for the big companies. And so I was doing that for a while, but then I needed like a second job. And so because I was like learning law and like in college and got a degree for it, I already knew like my brain was like wired towards law. And so I was kind of thinking like, what's a job that I don't necessarily have to do law school, but I can still be like in law. And so paralegal kind of became like the option. And I've been doing it ever since, because for me it's easy. It's just not a passion of mine. So content creation is like really my focus, but like the way I handle my finances or live is pretty much like through law. So yeah.
Okay. So and then your main passion would be more the content creating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I know we've talked a lot about about content creating and everything like that. I know you yourself also do a lot of photography. Right?
Yeah.
So how often do you still do that? No.
Photography is gone a lot slower. Before, I think like prime time was like maybe 2017.
Yeah. I remember you used to take some flicks, bro. Like they were nice. They were nice.
Yeah, that was like my younger days when I was rolling with a friend of mine. Her name is Tiana. She was also a photographer. So like we used to like adventure out a lot of places and just do a lot of shoots. And I actually learned photography through her, because originally I was a videographer, so I was more on the video side, but she taught me photography. So just doing that a lot, and then just having fun with it, because being a young and in college, it's like what you're going to school for, but you still want to have like certain hobbies and different things. And so photography and videography became like my hobby. And so yeah, photography was like really cool. But I would say now I still do it. It's just kind of rare. It's more so if somebody like messages me like, oh, I know you do photography, can you take a picture of mine? And I'll do it for them either for free, or I'll do it like for a small price.
Right.
But to say like I do it like as a full-time career, I don't, just because a lot of my focus has been more like my own content creation, or if I'm doing like the paralegal work, or just a lot of work in law. So yeah.
I mean, honestly, like content creation and law, I mean, I feel like that's like, they're very different from each other, but at the same time, like it's kind of interesting to see that you have such a intersection of, I guess, interests. What would you say that kind of like stemmed like your content creation days? Was it from when you started like teaching in education, or when you kind of switched over, you wanted to go into law? Like when did that kind of start around?
That's a weird period too, because content creation was always like there for me. I think even in high school, just watching like people on Instagram, because around the time I was going to high school was like when Instagram like first started. And so I used to see like a lot of skits and different things of people just like making funny jokes, or just like using content as a way to make a career. So it was always an interest of mine, but I never like really fully pursued it until college. But I never really saw it as like a full-time career, even in college, just because back then, like doing content and stuff just wasn't.
It wasn't. Yeah, it
wasn't a career. Yeah. So.
Or at least it wasn't perceived as that.
Yeah. Seen as a hobby.
So I knew it was a love of mine. I felt the passion there, but I just never pursued it full time, just because one, it just back then it just wasn't a thing, and then two, parents just wouldn't understand if you were to say like, hey, I want to quit college and do content for full time.
Right.
So that's where like me going for law was like the thing, just because I knew it was more of my safety net, and I knew it was like a very admirable career to be a lawyer. But I would say like around 2018, 2019, that's when like content became more prevalent. And so I would say around that time, like right before COVID, was where I like kind of made the switch, like, okay, let's actually do this like full time, which is where, hanging out with Tiana and doing the photography, or just doing videography, like buying my own camera, to the point where I even took, I used to get like financial aid checks from college, and
oh, those are the best.
Yeah.
Same.
So like a lot of that time I would take that check, and I was supposed to use it for like books and stuff. But I think one semester I literally like took the entire check and just bought a whole camera set to just do content.
I mean, honestly, I think when we talk about content creation, right, I think that Rafael and I, we put it best when we say that the hardest part of just recording is just, I guess it's kind of like similar to writer's block, where like you kept struggling just writing. It's like the same thing with just clicking record, right?
Yeah.
Getting out of the comfort zone to just record anything. I think I was like, when I was in Puerto Rico a few weeks ago, one thing I took into account was, let me just record everything I see, anything new, like as soon as hopping on the plane, just going into the car, right, preparing the luggage, things like that, and then hopefully compile into a nice little vlog like at the end. That in itself, like I wasn't really thinking just recording, I was just trying to like show the scenery around me, right? And so in doing so, it's like you said, kind of being able to capture the moment, but also being able to, I guess, illustrate yourself in a different light.
Yeah.
because I think that's the hardest part. But with like your content creation, I know you said you've done 2 documentaries before. You're working on your 3rd now. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, can you like talk to us a little bit more about that? Like
tell us about the first 2. Like how that came about.
And like what they were about. Yeah.
Yeah. So documentaries was always something that even as a kid I enjoyed watching. It's weird, like part of like law. I always liked, for some reason, like the psyche of like serial killers or like people that like murder people. I know that sounds strange, but
honestly, in this day and age,
you mean like
honestly, you're probably more normal to say that than not
yeah.
to say that.
You talk about like unsolved mysteries, like
like as a kid, I was scared of like watching it, but I was always interested. Like, why do people like kill so many people? Like that's so strange. Because I would never do that. But as I got older, like documentaries was something that I watched like all the time on Netflix. And so I knew in jumping into content creation and being a videographer, I wanted to kind of produce my own, but I never knew how. So when I got the opportunity to do my first one was actually pretty much like this, where I was like discussing my entire life from the time I was born to now. The idea behind that was like, one, to share my story, but then two, if I ever have like kids or just anybody that wanted to know who I was from like the beginning, they can always go back to that documentary and just learn who I am just by watching for like 30 minutes. The second documentary was actually with the help of a few people. It was pretty much like talking about young adults and how we struggle today, or trying to get the older generation to view our viewpoint, instead of, it's like, oh, they don't want to work, or they just want to do this content stuff and not actually get a job. It was, well, this is our viewpoint, this is why we struggle, this is the world we live in. So it was kind of a way to help the older generation to understand where we're coming from, instead of just, the norm of, oh, they don't know what they're talking about, kind of thing. So
yeah, that's super. I think that's super interesting to talk about, because it's like, I feel like there's such a big divide between generations, right?
Yeah.
And not even to get like political, but the first thing I think about is that, like, when you look in the world of politics, it's just the majority are just, I would say the average age is like 50, 60, right? Give or take, right? In the majority of the political world, right? And I feel like us, the youth, never know how to like relate to them, because we just see them though as if they're just trying to look out for themselves and not for the people that are coming up. And then vice versa, right? Like they look at us, and like you said, they look at us like, bro, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't have any experience to really make a valid point or create a true opinion on what side they want to be on, right? So I think that's really important to be able to understand both sides, and know that like there's good and there's good and bad on both sides, and it's important to understand each other. So
I completely agree.
And where do you have them? Like, where can you watch them? Like, do you have them out like published?
Oh yeah, they're both published on my YouTube channel. We Want More is, I think the first one came out like 4 years ago, and the second one came out like 2 years ago. So it's, both of them are still like somewhat pretty fresh. So but they're available.
So I guess if you guys are interested in finding out more about our boy Shamar, please be sure to go check him out. It'll be down below in the description.
And then you said you got another one coming out. Can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, so the third one right now is kind of still in idea mode. A friend of mine who recently had a child, she reached out to me, I think this was like last year or 2 years ago. She wanted to do a documentary of like women going through childbirth, or like just the younger generation like dealing with how to be a parent. And so that was like a cool idea that we both was like kind of interested in. We haven't talked about it much, so that might be like an idea that doesn't happen. But even if it doesn't, I do have another idea. It's kind of still in the works, but I can't. Well, I don't want to say I can't discuss it too much, but I just.
Nah, but like,
you don't want to work. You're teasing.
Yeah.
Be sure to stay tuned for that.
No, that's awesome, bro. That's awesome. And where do you see yourself when it comes to the content creator? Like, where do you see yourself going with all of it? Like, what? Again, you have your YouTube channel and everything, and you're trying to promote yourself. As we are, right? What we're doing here, right? Exactly. We're in that space, and like, what is the direction that Shamar has for your channel going in the next few years?
Definitely working with a lot of brands. Like a lot of my content when I was younger was kind of freelance and just doing stuff. But as I got older, I realized I needed like a set place to go. And a lot of,
niche, as some like to say now.
yeah. So a lot of my content now is more like lifestyle, fitness, health. And that's something I'm like really passionate about, like going to the gym more, eating healthy, and just kind of helping the younger generation on like what to do or like where to go. Cause a lot of times growing up, I didn't have like a sense of direction, so I had to figure it out myself.
Right.
And so I want my content, one, to work with brands that are similar to that vision of helping the younger generation to learn more without, any help. And then two, just promoting like health in general. So yeah, I see that as my vision.
That's good, bro. Now, I mean, at the end of the day, if you push yourself hard enough and you have a plan, you're gonna get to where you're gonna get to where you want to go.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
We're not here if we didn't have a sense of direction and have the consistency to do it. So that's what it's all about.
Right.
And adding on to that, it's not just having the plan, but also just starting. Right?
Yeah, starting, exactly.
There's no such thing as a bad idea until you actually go ahead with it, realize it doesn't work, and you start something fresh, right? But you won't know it doesn't work until you try. Right?
Exactly.
Right.
So just like one thing I used to say at Gap. Oh, and I was gonna tell you guys the story. Yeah. About being Gappy. All right.
Oh,
All right. I'll give you guys the story. All right.
Let's hear it.
All right. So when I started working at Gap, right? I was the new kid on the block, whatever. Everybody's super grown, and at the time I was the young one. I started like at 17 at the Gap, and I was just trying to put my personality out there and just try to make friends or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I don't even know how it came, but I remember we would have all the walkie-talkies. People would be yapping it up or whatever, and I forgot who was on talking. Maybe I think they were talking about like the daily goals or something like that. I don't even remember. But I remember I just had this urge to just get on it and just speak, right? And for whatever reason, something came out and I said, everybody just keep being Gappy, right? Because I wanted to be like, be positive or whatever, right? But instead of just saying happy, I said, let's be Gappy, right? And I don't know, it just always stuck. And then I remember just telling all the managers, Jose and Steven and all that stuff. And I'll never forget, I think I told Jose, I was like, yo, bro, you guys got to put that on the shirt. Like, let me talk to somebody on the uppers. You guys got to put that on the shirt. Be Gappy. Like, I feel like I feel like that's such a good advertisement. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I feel like somebody would buy that at Gap, personally. And I always try to push that since I was there. Specifically to put on a shirt so I can get money off it. But eventually it kind of just stuck. And I remember everybody at work that had a conversation with me learned that to be Gappy.
The Gappy.
Yeah. So
the Gappy fam.
Yeah. So we was always a Gappy family. And that's kind of how that started. That word being Gappy. Obviously I don't use it anymore because we're not at Gap. But I always look back at that and just like, it just always kind of reminds me of like who I am, and it's just like, listen, bro, just gotta be happy, be positive, and that's what I was trying to push at work. Just enjoy what you're doing, enjoy the moment, and just be Gappy. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of what it is.
I think for the most part, Rafael, be Gappy.
Yeah.
I think that's for the most part. That's almost all the time we have for today. But Shamar, it's been a pleasure to have you on. I think we haven't.
It was great seeing you, bro.
We haven't spoken to each other since almost our Gap days, so it's been a while.
Literally, we haven't seen.
Since that last time.
It's good to see where you're at now, and best of luck with your third documentary.
Thank you.
And for the most part,
Louis, wait. It's okay. Wait, we're gonna end anyway. It's okay. Finish the outro, bro. Finish the outro.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. We're back. And so, guys, if you guys are interested, please be sure to check out Shamar's third documentary coming soon on his YouTube channel. Show him some love and support. And be sure to click that subscribe button down below and click that notification bell so you don't miss new episodes like this. And maybe you could be on it someday. But this is your host, Jesse, signing off. And my co-host,
Rafa, as always.
and Shamar.
Bye, guys.
See you guys soon.
Deuces.